I have been a board member for 44 years.
He's by far the longest-serving board member in Babson's history.
You stay on as long as you feel like you can add value. Babson is not moribund. It is new and different every day, every month, every year. I get energized by that fact. There are new issues, new questions, new opportunities.
I think Bob has been a continuing presence that suggests that no matter how good an institution we are, there are always opportunities to be better.
The board represents the shareholders and the interests of the shareholders. The management is the layer that executes the strategy for the organization, and the board is the check and balance against that. Bob understood that more keenly than anybody I know.
And I think Bob would tell you more than anybody, governance should be having leaders of any institution look way down the road, not at tomorrow.
We have, a very deep strategy process with the board where we review our 5-year strategy, and then we provide updates on a regular basis. Bob has been very valuable in that process, listening to what our customers have to say. We bring customers into those sessions, translating what he hears from our customers into thoughtful ways to push and probe on our strategy. Never in an intrusive way, always in a constructive way. Never crossing the line between governance and operating the business, always being very aware of where that line is.
Bob Weissman was a member of the board of State Street for some 24 years. State Street's a 225-year-old firm, and he's the longest-serving board member ever. Oftentimes, the role of board and the role of management gets blurred, and Bob was crystal clear on that point. And when he saw the board dropping into management activities, he would quickly call a timeout.
Bob has a very quiet leadership style. He gathers data, he listens, and then he listens some more.
At least for all of the routine board meetings that I participated in during my term, I don't think he said 100 words.
He's almost always the last person to speak at trustee meetings, and people wait for it. He doesn't speak last because he's ending the discussion, but rather because I believe he wants to hear everyone else's point of view before he speaks.
He doesn't push hard on people in a verbal way or a physical way, but his influence is so great that people want him to appreciate what they're doing or saying, and they work really hard to make that happen.
What I find is that I'm doing less talking and more listening, because that gives me the opportunity to select the appropriate moment to ask a question.
At one point, we were considering an acquisition. And Bob, being the provocative one, put out there, maybe we should sell our business instead of buying the other business. And it just, the earth stopped for a minute in the boardroom to say, like, why would we think of that?
I have found that asking a question is so much more effective than providing an answer.
To be able to put something that's slightly controversial or provocative on the table and cause people to think differently or open up at least their aperture about how they're considering things.
That helps the process of reaching good decisions.
I've learned to let the game come to me a little bit more, to not interject when I see things that aren't exactly to my liking at the time, to let it progress.
It's very likely that he will speak to people privately to help hear their perspective, but also to coach them and to try to get them to the right place so that there is no public humiliation for anyone involved if he happens to disagree, because it's very likely that he's right.
He was just a master of being able to take complex issues, simplify them, humanize them, and make everybody feel like they had been a part of an ultimate solution.
Bob's greatest gift, besides being the coach, is trying to grow people. And by doing that, they can learn those skills, but it takes a lot of patience to let things happen when they might not be exactly right. but you have to let them proceed enough where they get off the tracks so that people can learn lessons from it and grow from those opportunities. And Bob is really, really good about allowing them freedoms and then helping them when he knows they're getting a little bit out of bounds.
Bob took a bet on me, on an idea, and as he's told me subsequently, on the talent. He believed that the idea was good and that we would execute against that idea.
Great people are a function of an intentional design strategy that focuses on talent as the core value in every setting for all that you do. That's the lesson I take away from Bob. Bob is better at it than almost anybody I know.
Bob's greatest accomplishment when it comes to creativity isn't just coming up with a crazy idea. It's getting it implemented, it's getting other people involved, and it's taking existing ideas that may be out there and making them creative solutions.
I would say the best advice that Bob ever gave me and the company was this idea of staying focused on doing a small number of things, but doing them really well. As a small company, he recognized that we just didn't have the resource to be all things to all people. It's better to be really good at one thing than mediocre at 10 things.
When I asked Bob to be our founding board of directors, we had no revenues. We had no employees but myself. Next year, our 10th year, we will be a firm with $300 million in revenue, 1,300 people operating in 21 countries. And I share that success with our founding board member and mentor, Bob Weissman.
There were two things that were always a constant in Bob's mind as it related to State Street. It was, what was the client thinking? What was going on in the greater industry and the effect of technology?
Bob helped kind of shape and reshape the values of the company to a client-focused, a technology-bent, client-centric businesses with a technology capability to lead us into the next decade.
You want to create change, because out of change comes opportunity. Because if you fail to do that, then inevitably somebody else will take the initiative and change the world around you.